All right, back for another beer review, and today I'll be reviewing yet another beer from the Sierra Nevada Brewing Company, and they're out of both Chico, California, and Mills River, North Carolina, and this is their Celebration, the 2024 release. So this is a Fresh Hop IPA that comes in at 6.8% alcohol by volume, 65 IBUs at the time of review. This can is just over 6 weeks old. So what we have here is, in my opinion, one of the best seasonal beers that you can buy, and I'm sure a lot of you out there agree with that. I've reviewed this one a couple times before, including last year, but I think going forward, I'm going to review this every year, kind of like I do with Lagunitas Born Yesterday, Lagunitas Willatize, and a few others, because this beer, in my opinion, deserves it. So this is a Fresh Hop IPA. I don't know if they've changed the recipe over the year. Over the years. I don't think so. I think this is still brewed with a fresh Cascade, Centennial, and Chinook hops, and I'm sure most of you have already consumed a bunch of this in October and November. I'm a little late to the party, but I was picking up some holiday-themed beers for December, and I was like, you know what? I need to grab this and review it before we get into December, get to it fresh, and just enjoy it. So we're going to crack this one open, get it in the glass, and see what we got going on with this year's release. I am using my Tiku here, one of my many Tikus, because every year I've been reviewing this beer in Tiku, so I want to keep the the look, the glass shape, I should say, the same. So let's give it a pour here. Always looks so beautiful every single year. Do something like that. Yeah. Now, a little bit of an aggressive pour, so we have like 3-finger head, but the beer itself, it has a beautiful, gentle haze to it. It has this really deep, dark orange color that almost is turning into like a copper tone, little mahogany tones in there. But again, I can kind of hold up my light. I can see the shadow of my hand through, but again, it has a gentle haze to it. 3 fingers of this straight up tan-colored head. It has a nice creaminess look to it, but there are some bigger bubbles, so you get a little bit of soap sudsy kind of vibe to it. But that's kind of what this beer looks like pretty much every single year. Although I may have said this in last year's review, but I don't remember it having the gentle haze as much as in prior years when it was more like a crystal clear look to it. But whatever, it's good nose. Yeah, I mean, it's Celebration, and that doesn't really help anybody who's maybe never had this beer before. But this has just, again, this beer is beloved by many because it, I think, reminds people of a simpler time when it came to craft beer, when you only had, so many breweries and there was only so many seasonals, and a lot of the IPAs tasted very akin to this one back, 10, 15, 20 plus years ago. This is one of those beers where it just reminds me of the West Coast IPAs of yesteryear in the best way possible. The malt character in here has that caramel, bready, biscuity kind of vibe. It's, has a sweetness to it, or perceived sweetness in the nose. But then I'm getting a little bit, now, I think in prior years, I think last year, I'm trying to remember, I should have went back and looked at my review, but I remember it being very citrus heavy with like white grapefruit and orange. I thought the orange was a little bit more juicy. It's more of a candied orange here, like almost like an orange Skittle or something. Not too big, but it definitely smells like it has like a candy kind of orange vibe. Definitely like a white grapefruit pith. I remember, too, I talked about peach. Not getting peach here. There might be like a nondescript stone fruit in the nose, too. Definitely has some fruity vibes, but then the big blast of that resinous pine, floral, almost sprucey kind of vibe. Yeah, I mean, this is exactly what this beer is every year. Beautiful mixture of, sweet, bready, biscuity malts, a little bit of caramel. Then you have the pithy, rindy kind of citrus tones with a little bit of candied nature to it. A touch of like that underripened stone fruit. And then a big blast of pine, spruce, floral, very resinous. I think last year I reviewed this one too. Maybe it was a little fresher, like a week or two. This is just over 6 weeks. But a beer like this, you can't, now if you're coming from the worlds of hazies and you're trying this for the first time, like this doesn't have to be uber fresh. I don't even like my hazies all that fresh anymore, but if this is 6 weeks, 2 months, 2.5, 3 months, it holds up well because a lot of these old school IPAs do. Anyway, it smells beautiful. 'Tis the season. Let's get into this one. Cheers, everyone. Every year. Sierra Nevada, one of the biggest craft breweries out there. But the consistency of their beers is almost unmatched, in my opinion, when it comes to craft breweries. Like, they're up there. every single year that I try something that I've had in previous years or I've had before, that's either a seasonal or maybe a limited release or whatever the case may be, it's always very similar to the beers of yesteryear that I've tried from them. It's just they're very consistent with their beers. They do. I mean, this is going to be slightly different than prior years, but the quality I think is unmatched and unchanged from year to year. But anyway, look at that glass glazing. Looks fucking phenomenal. Another sip. Mouthfeel. Their body mouthfeel. Body's like medium, touch over medium, 6.8%. I think it's beautiful. Mouthfeel. Very crisp on the palate. Also has a nice moderate to touch over moderate carbonation to it. It's effervescent on the palate, but also still has this smooth, slightly creamy nature to it. So body mouthfeel, which is spectacular like it typically is. The taste, nose carried over, and it's very reminiscent of prior vintages. First thing that hits me tip of the tongue, it has a caramel, bready, biscuity kind of vibe to it. More of like a slight darker bread than like a white bread, maybe even a slight toasty note, but very slight, very touch. I would just, if you just said blanket, bready, biscuity, caramel, sure. That's kind of where it lands for me. Tip of the tongue, omnipresent, dives right into the palate with you the entire way, but never the predominant note like through the rest of the palate because the hops kind of dictate where this beer goes. About a third of the way through the palate, I get this rindy, zesty, pithy white grapefruit. It has a little bit of that from the orange, a smidge of that like candied like orange Skittle vibe. This isn't really juicy this year, or it doesn't seem it has a little bit of, like prior years I remember had a little bit of a juicy nature. I'm not getting as much here. It's more like a slight candied orange. Halfway through the palate, I get a underripened stone fruit. I'm going to say more again in that peach, apricot, mango realm, maybe even a touch of like a sweetened pineapple. And then it finishes with that big piney, sprucey, resinous hop quality, a touch of a floral aspect. This is semi to full on dry. This is quite bitter. This has a firm bitterness. This is moderately to firm bitter on the palate. It definitely has a sweetness through the first half of the palate for me, but that bitterness kind of lingers in the middle of my tongue all the way through to the finish. It's starting to build too. It's just starting to build with each sip, and it's just like you want to go back for more because it's dry, it's bitter, and you want to taste all that fruity and piney, sprucey goodness when you go back for another sip. Yeah, this is just, again, a well-crafted, well-executed, very good seasonal Fresh Hop IPA. I wish there were more Fresh Hop IPAs. You know, born yesterday, you have this from like some of the bigger breweries. I know a lot of folks have local breweries that do it. Here in the Western New York area and in New York State as a whole, you don't see a ton of Fresh Hop IPAs. You just don't as much anymore, and it's kind of a bummer because I think they're a lot of fun. But this is a fantastic beer, 6.8%. You know it's kind of in that 6.5, 7 realm because the body, the mouthfeel, intensity of flavors, you're not really getting anything from that's like sub 6% too often. So it's very very noticeable. I want to say I like this a little bit more than last year, maybe just slightly more. I think I gave this like a high 4.25 last year, but at the end of the day, whether I'm calling this a good to very good beer for my own palate, this is, and I think I said this last year in last year's reviews, this is again one of the best seasonal beers out there, one of the best seasonal IPAs from a bigger brewery, and for what it is, this is, an immaculate 5 out of 5, just fucking world-class, awesome beer that there's a reason why people seek this out every single year by the case, by the 12-pack. Like, they want this beer because it's reminiscent of the holidays. I mean, that's the whole point of this beer. I'm getting that like piney, sprucey vibe to it. But on top of that, it's just a really well-made Fresh Hop IPA, plain and simple. Personal preference though, obviously I'm gonna go lower than a 5 out of 5, but just let it be known that this is a delicious beer and I'm super stoked to be reviewing it again. So Celebration, the 2024 release from Sierra Nevada, I am going to give that a low 4.5, I'll go 4.4. Like, this is fantastic stuff. And if you've never had this before, give it a go. And I'm sure there's some of you maybe out there who don't like IPAs, or maybe you're a haze bro that just drinks juicy, fruity, hyped hazies, and that's fine. Nothing wrong with enjoying what you enjoy. But go outside your comfort box and give this a try at some point if you've never had it, just to see what, I don't even say the hype because this isn't like really hyped beer, just people know about it. People know good beer, and this is good beer, but give it a go if you've never had it before. I think it'd be worth at least checking out a single. I don't think you'll be too disappointed. If you are, you wasted a couple bucks. Big deal. Price point availability. In my neck of the woods is typically like $10.99 a 4-pack or a 6-pack. Pretty much anywhere you go, $10 to $12 a 6-pack. 12 packs are probably in that $18 to $20 realm. A case, I don't know, probably 35, 30, 35, something like that. I don't know. All I know is great bang for bucks for something that's almost 7%, Fresh Hop IPA, and you pretty much can get it anywhere. I mean, the Sierra Nevada gets distribution to a bunch. I don't know if it's every single state, but it's the vast majority of them here in the US, so you can't really go wrong with it. And yeah, check it out if you've never had it before. I've seen some people this year on a lot of social media platforms, YouTube, Untapped, Instagram, like in the comment section. I've watched a couple of reviews. I've watched a good friend of mine and fellow beer tuber, Joe over at Joe's Arcade. He did a side-by-side of this and Sierra Nevada Pale Ale, because a lot of people say this is the bigger sibling to Pale Ale. And Joe kind of got those vibes. It wasn't like exact, but he was like, I could definitely see it and I understand it. But there's people who have said like they don't get the whole. I guess they don't get this beer as a whole, just in general. Like they don't understand why every year people are waiting for this release and whatnot. And I feel like a lot of those people are the aforementioned haze bros and people who got into hazy IPAs and New England IPAs because they don't understand like what the allure of this beer is. But if you're somebody who was drinking, hop forward beers 10, 15 plus years ago, this just reminds you of the good times. And again, the simpler times of drinking great IPAs, great West Coast IPAs, and you don't see as many beers like this nowadays. So when you get it, and these are the styles that you used to love, you got to stock up and you got to drink them and you got to wax poetic about them, because they are the classics of yesteryear that we still need Sierra Nevada to produce. So buy these beers, whether it's a single can, a 6-pack, a case. Buy these beers if you like them, because the only way Sierra Nevada can keep on making this is if it keeps on selling. They're a business. They're a brewery. They got to make money. And at the end of the day, they're going to keep on releasing this one if the demand is there. And every year the demand is there. Hence why people enjoy this one, because they enjoy it. Plain and simple. No other secret behind why this one sells well and why people look for it. So that was a 4.4 out of 5 Fresh Hop IPA for me. 5 out of 5 all day stylistically and what they're going for from Sierra Nevada. Classic beer, and one that everybody I think should try at least once in their life, even if they're not an IPA fan, just to say, hey, I tried the iconic Sierra Nevada Celebration. Anyway, if you had this one before, post in the comment section. Let me know what you thought about it. Like I said, 7% or 6.8%, just under 7. It kind of drinks like it, but no warming in the chest, no booze on the palate, nothing like that. It's just, you can kind of tell from the body and mouthfeel intensity of flavors. And I would say this is probably a little bit better than last year's release for me off of memory. But again, I have, over the past couple of years, really started to clamor for these old school IPAs. So I think it's just with each passing year, I get more attached to these old school IPAs, because I never used to like them back, 10, 15 years ago. I was just like, only certain ones. Now, I get why people back then were going nuts about them. I didn't understand it. Now I understand it and have been understanding it for the past 5 years. So anyway, I'm going to shut this one down. Hopefully you guys get some, grab some cans of this, get your hands on it if you haven't yet. I've pretty much seen it everywhere I've went now in the last week. I didn't buy beer for a whole month, so that's why I didn't review this one sooner. But then I went to a couple beer stores, and sure enough, it was at every beer store. It's at a couple grocery stores. It is what it is. I know there's a longer review. That's the Beer PaTroll in a nutshell. But again, you had this one before, comment section. I would love to hear from you. Do you think this year's release is better than prior releases, not as good, whatever the case may be? Post in the comment section. I'd love to hear from you. I'm going to shut this one down, and until the next one, cheers.